Okay, should be good. I got about 4 minutes to talk here. Intro. The boss isn't here today.
Beach from Hamilton to the border was 4 lanes, but not really, developed. Now it's like 8 lanes, like an American interstate in New Jersey.
Getting a chance to see people is one of the whole reasons why we do this. And I hate like the devil to stop it right now, but it's time to get going. Good afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Scott Burge, and as a speakers program coordinator and on behalf of the Emeritus Center President Jim Van Voorst, who could not make it today, I welcome you all to the kickoff presentation for the fall semester. Usually he says a bunch of good stuff, then he introduces me, you sit through what I have to say, and then we get to the good stuff. Well, I'm going to do both right now, so I'm going to talk a little longer than I normally do, and snoring is okay. Established in 2006, the Emeritus Center opened in a roughly 700 square foot space that was originally the mailroom for this building. And with the blessing of President Kermit Hall and an endowment by Dr. William L. Reese II, the Emeritus Center was started with a purpose to encourage emeriti to continue their pursuit of the university's mission, teaching, research, and I lost my place, and service, I'm sorry, after their retirement. The center has 4 major initiatives. The 3 Voices Grant Program is intended to foster and support post-retirement activity by emeriti with funding opportunities for activities of value to UAlbany emeriti. The Fellows Program honors emeriti for exemplary and sustained professional activity after retirement. Our latest fellow is Dr. Estela Rivera, Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs Emerita, who oversaw student health and well-being, counseling and psychological services, and behavioral health promotion, and continues numerous initiatives, one of which she and 2 colleagues will present a program on here in October. The Albany Lifelong Learning Institute, ALLI, pronounced ALLI, is a...
We're still arguing that.
Well, no, I wanted to get some interaction on that one. And I figured if I hadn't made a mistake yet, I would do it there. Anyway, it's a continued learning and social engagement initiative to provide and promote a variety of courses and activities designed specifically for older adults. With the leadership of Dr. Carol Whitaker, she and her committee embarked last spring with 3-course program with much success and much positive feedback. For the fall semester, ALLI expanded to 6 courses. The expanded offerings now include both in-person classes at Albany's E-Tech building, and now, to serve those living at a distance and/or with mobility challenges, 2 hybrid courses and 1 Zoom-only course. And we're delighted to be working closely with the Albany Guardian Society with these 3 courses, 3 of the 6. And I believe there are about 175 people signed up for this semester.
Wow.
And that's take number 2, and that ain't so bad. Congratulations. So that's where we are with that. And finally, there's the speakers program with 6 presentations here in the center this semester. Pick up a copy if you haven't already of the schedule or download it from our website. And we have a new twist. Quite frankly, off the record, we've always had a summer book read, and it's never really been that successful. So we thought we'd try something new, and we're collaborating with the New York State Writers Institute on October the 8th with what we're calling, actually what I'm calling, the Emeritus Piggyback Book Selection. And it'll, that particular date, October the 8th, the Writers Institute will feature two authors who are UAlbany alums speaking on aging with attitude, style, and sass. That's our group. Book information is available on the schedules or via the Writers Institute website. As you can see, there have been a couple of changes in the environment in the center. These chairs are so much more comfortable than our old assortment of folding chairs, right? And we're currently working with the University administration to upgrade our tech abilities and equipment as well. So today we welcome Professor Dr. James Lloyd, Senior Research Scientist and Professor from UAlbany's College of Nanotechnology, Science and Engineering, Department of Nanotechnology and Nanoscale Science and Engineering. Jim's professional background includes stints as a researcher and engineer with IBM.
You're accidentally moving the piece of paper forward.
You know how to get it back, though.
I'll try.
All right. I'm going to back up then. And Jim's professional background includes stints as a researcher and engineer with IBM, reliability scientist with the Pasadena Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and he still teaches a twice-weekly class at Nano. Among other things, he's a private pilot, an aviation historian, an artist and sculptor in welded steel, a collagist, a discoverer of phyrosynthesis, and the creator of polka darts. Whether he goes into any of that, I have no idea. But he's here, he's mainly here to regale us with the tale of the Vin Fizz Flyer. It's 1911 first crossing of the continent in September of 1911, and Dr. Lloyd's reenacting flight. As I understand it, the Vin Fizz Soda Pop Company, in order to spruce up their grape fizzy soda pop identity, I hear it wasn't all that tasty, it challenged aviators to be the first to fly from New York to California in those fragile flying machines of the Wright brothers era. Aviator Kelbreth Perry Rogers did it and survived. Back in the fall of 1986, to celebrate the 75th anniversary of that flight, Professor Lloyd reenacted that trek in a period replica flying machine and survived. And half a lifetime later, he's here to tell us about it. If you would, hold all questions, any questions, until the end. And please welcome Professor James Lloyd.
I would like to make one major change from what he said there about asking questions. You can ask questions anytime.
Excellent.
But what this is that this, I was very fortunate to have a chance to essentially have a good time, and we had a really good time recreating history. And I was and this is the story that I did. Now, let me see, where do we go here? Here we go. Okay. Now, I've been an airplane nut my whole life. The first picture I ever drew when I was a little kid was of an airplane. So, you know, so what happened, it was back in 1986, I had just gotten my pilot's license, and I had a couple of 100 hours, which is, you know, which was billed as an experienced pilot. But if any of you guys know anything about flying, a couple of 100 hours is not an experienced pilot.
No.
You're still learning. But it was in 1986, and I realized that this was the 75th anniversary of the first flight across the United States. And I thought, well, you know, I said, somebody ought to recreate that. And then I said, maybe I should recreate that. So what I did is I decided to do it. I was going to go, at the time I was in a flying club, and I was going to take the club plane and just stop at all the same places that Cal Rogers did back in 1911. And but it turned out to be somewhat different.
Yes.
The first one I think I'd like to do is just to go through some of the original flight. This is not me, this is Cal Rogers back in 1911. You have to realize that 1911 was only 8 years after the first flight by the Wright brothers, only 8 years. And this was the first flight. This is probably the most famous photograph in the world. I mean, I would get that probably almost everybody in the world has seen this photograph somewhere, okay? This is the first flight, and you gotta remember, in 1903, only 8 years before Cal Rogers made his flight across the country, the first flight, guess how far do you think the first flight was? Anybody think they know?
Who's got it?
Seconds.
No, this was the longest flight of the day.
Oh, shoot.
It was 120 feet.
Okay.
And they did 4 flights that day. This was the last one. And the reason why it was the last one is you got to remember, nobody knew how to fly an airplane. And he had a hard landing and he broke his strut. So that was the end of that day's flying. And it was the end of this aircraft also. There was only the planes that they flew in 1904 and on were improved. Okay. So at that time, there was a flying meet in Reims, France, where they invited all of the, by this time, by 1909, there were more people than just the Wrights who were flying. In fact, there were quite a few, especially in France. France, they kept claiming that they were the beginnings of aviation because everything happened in France, and the Wrights were kind of secretive. They would do their testing and their flying. They wouldn't tell anybody about it because they were trying to make money off the patents, and everybody just violated the patents.
Oh,
No, and they didn't want other people to go steal their ideas, so they did a lot of their testing in secret, whereas the Frenchmen didn't. And anyway, so the first flying meet that was ever held was in 1909, and almost everybody in the world who had an airplane or something that resembled an airplane showed up. And when I would say that any landing you walk away from was considered a good one, that's kind of like a joke that people say all the time. It was really true. Most of these planes back then in 1909, which is only 2 years before Cal flew, they couldn't turn. They didn't know how to control them. All they knew how was to get up in the air and just hope that they can land somewhere. And they really couldn't, most of the airplanes really could not actually navigate at all. All they could do was just go fly at an altitude of about 6 feet for the length of what was of a field and come down and turn around and try to do it again. That's what flying was like in 1909. Although in 1909, one pilot, right here, he actually flew across the English Channel, which was a big deal, 26 miles. That was a huge deal in 1909. But anyway, so in 1911, when this happened, William Randolph Hearst, the newspaper magnate, offered a prize of $50,000 for the first airman who could fly across the United States. Now, $50,000 in 1911 was a fair piece of change. You know, it was not. It was some money. You know, that meant something. He said that the feat must be accomplished in 30 days or less. The flight must pass through cities where Hearst had newspapers. Because he was, of course, you know, trying to go sell newspapers. That's why he did this. And cities like New York, Chicago, Dallas, Kansas City. And he never expected to pay out. He never expected anybody to be able to do this because it had to be done by the end of the year. And he never expected that to happen. The guy who actually did the flight was a guy by the name of Perry Rogers, who was quite a character. He came from a family of, well, it came from for instance, His great uncle was Commodore Perry at the Battle of Lake Erie. He was, it said he came from a storied family. His father was an Indian fighter. We don't look at that the way we did back in
I know.
1870, but he was an Indian fighter. His cousin John, actually, his younger cousin John, actually became one of the first naval aviators quite a bit after Cal was finished. He was almost stone deaf. And in fact, he had a reputation of being arrogant and unkind because he said he didn't respond. He didn't respond to people because he couldn't hear you. But he had a bad reputation for that. And actually, he was probably not so bad. He smoked cigars. When I decided to do the reenactment of the flight, there were certain aspects of the reenactment that I was not going to read. One of those, and that was the main one. He was 6 feet 4 inches tall and born in Pittsburgh. I used to be 6'3". I'm a little bit shorter than that now, but I was 6'3", and I was born in Pittsburgh. So that's yeah. So yeah, right. Keep it together. And he learned to fly from the Wright brothers. I did not learn how to fly from the Wright brothers. I learned from Ed St. Pierre. If anybody, anyway, this is okay. So Cal met J. Ogden Armour. J. Ogden Armour was Armour meats. Okay, Armour hot dogs. Okay, and that was one of the things on the flight. I got to meet Arnie Armour. Okay. Who was Arnie Armour? Arnie Armour was some poor guy who they put into a hot dog. And he used to walk around when I took off in a few places where they showed up. And he looked like a hot dog. Okay. Anyway, J. Ogden Armour met Cal at the Chicago Air Meet, where Cal won the Endurance Prize, which was prophetic in many ways, since he bankrolled. He said he would bankroll Cal's expenses if he named his plane after a soft drink he was marketing now, the Vin Fizz. It was a grape soda, right? It was horrible. You never heard of the Vin Fizz after this flight because it was the name of the airplane, but the drink itself was pretty execrable. It was pretty bad. And anyway, but they were going to offer him. He was going to give him $5 per mile east of the Mississippi, and $3 per mile west of the Mississippi. Why do you think there was the difference in? That's right. There weren't that many people west of the Mississippi, so the population density was lower, so he paid them that. But this
not many people to drink the gin fizz, so there would.
Well, I'll tell you, yeah. But if you had a bottle of Vin Fizz right now, you'd be wealthy. Because there are only, I think, only about 4 or 5 bottles of Vin Fizz that actually exist.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. First place, you sold it for less than a year because nobody drank it. Okay. So Cal now he was going to get backing from Armour. So what he did is he wanted to go find an airplane. He was to fly, and what he ended up flying was a Wright EX. Now the Wright EX meant Wright for exhibition. The Wright brothers, which was part of what we were talking about before about their secretiveness and everything. The Wright brothers thought the idea of exhibition flying was beneath them, and they said, "This is for stunt pilots. This is for stunters. It's not for us. We're serious scientists. We're making airplanes. We're not going to go do exhibition." Well, other people by 1911 were exhibiting all over the place, especially Glenn Curtiss, who was getting a lot of recognition because of the flights that he's making. He like one of Glenn Curtiss's big flights was actually flying from New York to Albany. was a big, it was a big deal back when he did it, you know. And, but anyway, so what they did is the Wrights relented and they designed an airplane for exhibition. And what it was that they took the Wright Model B, which was a two-seater, made it slightly smaller, made it into a single-seater. And this was the plane, had a 35 horsepower engine built by the Wrights. That was one of the things that the Wrights did pretty well, was to design and build the engines. And they also had a guy, Charlie Taylor, who was a good mechanic who worked with them. It was a 35 horsepower Wright engine, 31-foot 6-inch span. It weighed 908 pounds, fully loaded, and it had a top speed of about 55 miles an hour. Which right now, if you get any airplane that has a stall speed below 55 miles an hour, it will just fall out of the air.
Yeah.
But this thing, it had it. I don't know what the stall speed was, but it was pretty low. Anyway, this was the Wright EX that he flew. Now, 3 flyers actually took the bait from Randolph. Okay. First one was Bob Fowler, who flew in a Wright Model B. Next was Jimmy Ward. Oh, and he also started from San Francisco, and he had a lot of trouble. He had a lot of trouble flying east because there's something was in the way, which was called the Rocky Mountains. And he had the difficult time getting over the Rocky Mountains. In fact, he tried 2 or 3 times, didn't make it. And finally he landed and said, I'm not going to do this. So that was Bob Fowler. Jimmy Ward started in New York, going west, and he actually went a few hundred miles, and then his airplane cracked up, and he also gave up. Okay. This is his plane, which was a Curtiss Pusher, which the Curtiss airplanes at this time were actually more advanced than the Wrights. The Wrights did really have the first flights and all this kind of stuff, but they were quickly, very rapidly eclipsed by other people. The main one was Glenn Curtiss. Glenn Curtiss was a motorcycle racer. He actually held the world's record for speed on land. And around I don't know what the year was, it was about 1900 something. And he went 130 miles an hour. That's pretty impressive. That's right. And but then he got into aviation because his engines, he built very good engines for his motorcycles. And the guy who I forgot his name right now, was making dirigibles, and he needed a light, powerful engine to go fly these blimps around. And he got Curtiss to go build them, and then Curtiss got interested in all kinds of aviation. So he ended up designing airplanes with some innovations that the Wrights didn't have that made his planes actually better. Okay. And then there was Cal Rogers, who started last. Jimmy Ward gave up. Cal Rogers did not give up, and he made it across. Okay, now the flight that Cal did was 4,231 miles. It took 84 days, but that included time in the hospital.
Oh,
Yeah, like they said, any landing you walk away from is a good one. Well, not all his landings were good. He had a few that he had 80 landings, now 1,230 gallons of gas consumed. Figure it out. That's only about 4 miles per gallon for a 35 horsepower engine. Wow. And he was followed by a support train. I had a support truck that followed me around because you can't do this alone. This is something that you need help with. And it was accompanied by Charlie Taylor, who was the major mechanic for the Wrights. In fact, Charlie Taylor probably deserves more credit for the Wright engines being as good as they are as anybody or anything. But he was accompanied by Charlie Taylor, who went along with him for this flight across the country. This is something that the armor put out for the ideal drink, Vin Fizz. And this shows the starting off in New York and ending up in California with all the stops on it, all of his 80 stops.
So that's how he made it through or across the
Oh, he went-
Rockies, because he went down south.
He went down south. In fact, he went down south, and in fact, and I went through the same place. The highest where the ground comes up, the lowest that you have is a place called Mile High Pass. And I flew through Mile High Pass in mine. I followed the flight.
Did he go over the Appalachians? It looks like he went
Yeah.
to the side of them too.
Well, he could get above the Appalachians. There would be sort of, I'm trying to think. He went to, yeah, he sort of evaded it. He went north of most of it.
Yeah, it looks like
Yeah.
he started around Lake Placid or something.
Well, he ended up near here. But anyway. So I decided then that I was going to go make the flight. At the time, I was going to go use just a Cessna 150. I was arranging to be able to go get the club airplane for what I figured would take a month. And I took a flight up to a friend of mine who lives in Plum Island, Massachusetts. And there's an airport in Plum Island, Massachusetts, which is the second oldest airport in the United States. With the oldest airport in the United States is actually in Maryland. But this was the second oldest airport in the United States. I landed there and I looked over. Whoops. I saw this. I said, I could fly across the country in a Cessna 150, but who cares? But this was amazing. I took a look at that and said, I got to figure out what that is. So I found out who it belonged to and what the story was. It was started, the plane was designed and built by a guy by the name of Jack McCornack, who started an ultralight company called Light Flyers. Okay. And this was at a time when there was, I don't know, if you're not in aviation, you may not may not be familiar with the ultralight craze that came up about 30 years ago, 40 years ago. The thing is that the government decided to have classification of pilots who were not licensed pilots, but if they flew certain types of aircraft called ultralights, you didn't have to have a pilot's license. So there was like a boom in these designs. There were all kinds of designs of, and one of them was Jack making his light flyers. But what he did is his light flyers made them look like original airplanes from the early times. This one looks a lot like a Wright Flyer, but it's, well, let me see if I get it. This is where it was built on Plum Island. The fella here with his shirt off is Stevie Noyes. He's the guy who actually built them. He was a young guy who worked for Jack. Jack designed the airplane, made the parts, shipped them out to Stevie. He put them together and they sold these airplanes. So this is the factory that the plane was built in. It's a really modern, a modern high-class facility, as you can see. And here is Jack McCornack right here working on, he's installing a propeller. I thought I had this turned off.
Yorktown Heights.
No, that's where I live.
Oh.
Thank you for calling Nissan of Yorktown Heights. For sales, press 1. For service, press 2. For parts, press 3.
How about for shutting? Sorry about that. I don't know. I thought I did shut it off. I did shut it off. It doesn't shut itself off.
You have to push.
I did.
Okay.
No, we-
Thank you for calling.
Two things,
No, it shut up finally.
maybe.
And that's not. Maybe we could put it out in the hall.
We're gonna put it here.
Put it in a Kleenex box and out in the hall.
There you go.
Now maybe we got this. This is it. I've been working in computers for 50 years. I still don't know how to use the damn things.
No, that's not Plum Island. Where's he there in that one?
That's actually out in, out west in California.
Huh.
Because what happened out there was, I was flying to, this was really near the end of all the flights. And it was, now, there's one thing I want to point out. When I made this flight, I figured I'll remember everything. I didn't write anything down. 40 years ago, I'm sorry, I forgot so much. You know, I'll go take a look at a picture and I'll have a vivid memory of what happened. But I can't tell you where,
Ah,
you know. But anyway, what he did is he built the airplane and we added a few things to it that were kind of interesting. Got a hold of Jack. And he came out and he sort of thought the idea of flying across. In fact, he was going to do it himself. But since I got the backing, he decided to come with me. In fact, that's one of the reasons why the airplane had the N number, the serial number was N75TH for N75th, because Jack was going to do it. He reserved the number, but he didn't do it. I did it. He came along as my mechanic, which is good because he invented the airplane. So he knew more about it than anybody else.
Mhm.
And he could make repairs that I could never do. And here, what we're doing here is I took off, oh, I forget where it was. I took off from the LA River. Now, anybody, you familiar with California? The LA River?
Right.
Yeah.
It's dry. It gets, it rains 3 days a year. It rains like crazy when it rains, but most of the time it's dry. So I took off from the LA River and I get up and I go, what is that? So I put the thing back down again. For some reason, the propeller had split. And fortunately, we had a spare prop. And this is Jack putting the spare prop on. Now, we took his light flyer and we made some modifications to it to make it look like the Wright EX. In his light flyer, he had what they call a canard out front, which was the wing that would go up like this. The Wright EX didn't have that, so we took that off and put the elevator in the back instead of in the front. And so we had to make some changes. One of the things that after we did that, it turned out that the center of gravity was such that I had to hold the stick in my gut to fly straight and level. That was very tiresome. I think my right arm gained by the time I got across the country. And what we did here is we put what we call a trim to help me do that, just a bungee cord. Put a bungee cord on there so that I didn't have to hold it back quite so hard. I know the FAA would not, but this was not FAA approved. It was an ultralight. So we did that. And then what we have here, this is a rocket attached to a parachute.
oh,
So that if I got in trouble at altitude, like if my wings fell off, I would push that button, the rocket would come out of the parachute and the whole plane would come down by parachute.
Oh.
That's good. They've actually incorporated that in some airplanes right now. You know, but fortunately, I didn't have to use it. All right.
How high could
the plane that we did about, well, there was the plane where we had it done. And it was painted up, we painted it up to look like the original airplane. There's an N75TH. Now you asked me how high could I fly? Well, the altitude limit, I could just tell you the highest I flew, which was 1,000 feet over Mile High Pass. All right, that's about, I would fly about 1,000 feet or 1,500 feet above ground. Because now, the one thing that you noticed, there was so much drag on this that if I was in a Cessna and if I lost power at say 1,500 feet, I would look out like this to see a place to land. With this airplane, there was so much drag that if the engine quit, I'd have to look like this.
Oh,
But it landed like at 30 miles an hour, so.
yeah.
So the chances of really getting yourself in trouble were somewhat less because it landed at it's such a low speed. But this is the airplane. And it's on this was in Ohio. We flew over, this was an airport, a grass airport. It's paved in dandelions. It was really gorgeous. It was just a complete, the run, it was a grass runway, but as you could see, there were just these yellow flowers everywhere. It was really nice. This is the VinFizz 2. Like I said, designed by Jack McCornack. He had a company called Pterodactyl Ultralights. We modified the early bird we had there to make it look like the Wright EX. Had a 35 horsepower converted snowmobile engine, and it had weighed 550 pounds with me in it. So you could actually, two people could easily pick up the airplane. And had a speed of about 45 miles an hour. Now that when I say a speed of 45 miles an hour, you say, what was the maximum speed? About 45 miles an hour. What was this landing speed? About 45 miles an hour. It depends whether you had the nose down or up, and it would climb at about 45 miles an hour. So this makes when you realize that I'm going along the highway, I'm getting passed by all the cars.
Yeah.
They're all going faster than I am.
I love that converted snowmobile.
I get a kick out of that too.
Yeah, well, actually the Koyuna, which a snowmobile engine almost, they made, and I'm not sure what changes were made to make it suitable for ultralights. I don't really recall, but there were some things. Now, the one thing that was kind of a problem in it was a two-stroke engine. So that if I stopped for gas, there had to be oil around somewhere, otherwise I wasn't going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I actually carried a couple of cans of oil with me, just in case I have to stop and get, just small, like little quart jars. In case I had to stop to get gas at an airport, I would have at least like a can of oil to put in. This is the plane now in the collection of the Empire State Aerospace Museum. It's small. It's really tiny. And it's covered in seconite. You say, now what's seconite? Seconite is a fabric that was, it's an artificial fabric that was made for aircraft. Because there are a lot of aircraft are fabric covered, especially older ones, even some newer ones.
Is that the one that's outside Schenectady?
Yeah. 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 They have, it's kind of interesting. They have my plane there, so it's a wonderful museum. But they have a really nice collection of 1950s military planes there, which are a really nice collection. And it's, it's worth coming to. It's a good little museum. In fact, my plane is kind of unusual because it doesn't have a gun, compared to what they have at the Empire State Museum. But this is a good museum. It's very good. Now, Armor didn't just support me. Armor also got in touch with uh, their what do you call it? Their PR and their advertising, and they put together a whole. And so what they did is that they came to my takeoff. This is actually is at Stormville, New York. They came to my takeoff in a helicopter, which kind of scared me because I was thinking about the wake turbulence from the helicopter, but the guy in the helicopter was smart enough to stay far enough away from me that it wouldn't affect it. That was pretty good. Now here's a guy giving me an interview for television, and he was really annoying. Oh, he would come up there and he would say, "Don't you think this is crazy? You think this is a dumb thing to do? Don't you think?" So I just told him, I says, "I'm not answering your questions. Ask me a decent question, I'll answer it." Now, I had a little bit of knowledge here. My father was an announcer for ABC, was an, so I knew a little bit about television, right? And I knew that this guy, he drove all the way out there to interview me. He had to come back with a story. He had to come back with something. And if I didn't cooperate, he was in trouble. So I knew enough that I had the power to say, no, I'm not going to answer that stupid question. And it worked. So, but I was covered when I did my takeoff. I was covered by, well, all of the New York TV stations. Anyway. Oh, we did that one already. This is what I not only had an airplane that was supposed to look like an old plane, I was supposed to dress myself, and this is me 39 years ago.
Like a saloon bartender.
Yeah, well, no, but those are actual clothes from the time. There's a company that was selling period clothes, and this is what they call the sack suit. And because you could put it into a sack, it was wool. And so what I did is I used that and I flew in this. Now, one of the things that you find is that it may have been wool, but you fly through. In one place where I took off in the morning, we had to clear the ice off the plane. So it was cold. When you're flying with a 35, 40 mile an hour wind, it gets cold. Yeah. This was we originally wanted to go take off from the same place that Cal Rogers took off, which was in New York City. Just south of New York City, so near where Idlewild is, or JFK is right now. But the city of New York did not like the idea. And they did not want me taking off from city property. They say this is not, they just didn't want to do it. So, okay, but I needed to take off from somewhere. Now, I went to school at a school called Stevens Institute of Technology, which is in what I consider one of the most interesting towns in the United States, was Hoboken, New Jersey. Now, Hoboken had a road called River Road that was right along the river. Plus, the mayor of Hoboken at that time was certifiably insane. And he wore a pink jumpsuit. And but he said, "Oh, that would be a great idea." So I was fortunate enough to find a nut who supported me. So what I did, the flight that we took off it took off from a road that was right next to the river called Sinatra Drive. Now, you know why it says Sinatra Drive? Frank Sinatra was a hometown boy from Hoboken. And you can see that they did pretty well with their advertising to get people there. There was quite a crowd. I don't know how many people were in the crowd, but there were a couple hundred people came to Chief head off. And in fact, they let the school out. And what the first thing they did is they took all the kids from the, whatever it was, the one school, lined them up along the river, and I was supposed to take off next to them. And I told them, no. You're not doing that. Because if I make a mistake, they take the kids out. They said, no, that's not gonna happen. So I had them push the kids behind me. So that if I did have anything, it would not, so the kids were there, they still had a good time. But we didn't risk their lives.
Is the mayor in any of those pictures?
The what?
The mayor.
Well, since I don't, this picture I think was taken by somebody, well, it wasn't taken by me, obviously. But it was taken, for showing me in the air, and everybody there was looking up at the sky, so I can't tell who is who. Then there's me walking over to the plane.
I ask, was the woman in the other picture, was that your wife?
Oh, you mean in this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my wife at the time.
What did she think about this adventure?
It was fun. We got I wasn't paid for flying. I couldn't do that because I didn't have a commercial pilot's license. But they could pay expenses. So we had expenses paid all the way across the country, didn't cost us anything. And but I couldn't accept any money for flying because I didn't have a commercial license.
Yeah.
But I could easily accept money for motels and restaurants and everything else, which I did. Yeah, so we did this already. Oh, that's right, we did all this. Okay. Oh, no, I'm going back, going the wrong way. Going backwards.
There we go.
There we go. This is right on the river, the Hudson River. Oh, yeah, and what's her name? If anybody, of course, with this group, you probably, like me, probably know who Joan London is.
Yeah.
She was there, she was one of the people who, who saw me take off, who was there. They had that Good Morning America show. I took off on Good Morning America.
Oh,
Joan London was there. It was fun because she wasn't there, actually. She was in New York, but I had a microphone coming up my pants talking to her here. And so that I was standing in front of the airplane talking to her, and she was in New York. And this is me giving the thumbs up. It's time to go. And there we go. If you can you see me up there? Yeah,
what's the blob underneath the plane?
the blob underneath.
It looks like a
I mean,
black speck. No, in the first vertical.
Oh, that?
No, upward, it's just it might be just on the lens. Oh, don't worry about it. Looks like you're suspending something.
No, what, that's the World Trade Center. It was still there.
Of course, that's.
If you meant down here, I think what that is, that was anything, that's probably from the top of the train station in Hoboken.
No, I'm talking about something, it's way up in the air.
That's the plane, that's me.
Yeah. It looks like a fly speck, okay, that's.
It was pretty close to a fly speck. It was this, that's me. Okay, now. Armor's major product is not the Bin Fizz. That's why Armor is still around. But Armor's main project was meats. So this was their idea of something appropriate. Yeah.
Landing in the pie. Okay.
Yeah, this was their idea of what was appropriate for the flight.
Could have been worse. You could have had a pig.
Yeah, yeah, this was, this is Jack here. This is, I don't know who that is. This is doing some work on the airplane. And this beautiful woman over here is my mother.
Uh-huh.
And this was taken in Texas. She flew out to Texas to go join the group there. And here's Jack. And I don't know who that was. And this is Jack also just working on the airplane. It was, the flight would not have been able to occur if Jack hadn't been there. I'm a reliability engineer, and I remember when they say, if you work in the semiconductor industry, it says, do you know how to make this? Do you know how to make that? It says, I'm a reliability engineer. I don't make anything. I break things. And this airplane, I broke it a few times.
Yeah.
And it was really good that Jack was there to keep it flying.
Oh,
This is me drinking a glass of milk in Indiana. Now you say, now why was I drinking a glass of milk? Well, Cal Rogers was a teetotaler, which was kind of unusual for 1911, but he was a teetotaler and he drank milk. And this was in Indiana, which has a lot of cows. And they asked me to go drink a ceremonial glass of milk. I said, sure. So this is what that is. And this is typical of what happened is when what I did is I spent close to a year before the flight planning it out, all the places I was going to stop and all this kind of stuff. It was at least a year I spent. And this is what happened. This is in Nebraska. I remember that. We landed there in the morning. Now, you couldn't really fly the plane realistically in the middle of the day. That's when all the turbulence is around. And this plane, like I said, you know, it had a very, very late wing loading. My wise guy statement is if you stand at the end of the runway and sneeze, I could feel it. You know? But it was still very lightly loaded. And now we got to figure out why I was saying.
You're in Nebraska.
Oh yeah, no, that's right. Because no, what they did is that they sent the fire company out to go pick us up, so we got to ride on the.
oh, that's where your break comes.
Yeah, this is a fire truck, and we got to and that. Oh yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. We could fly in the morning when it was calm, fly in the evening when it's calm, but in the middle of the day you couldn't really fly too much. So we got to see a lot of towns across the United States. Because of the fact that we couldn't fly in the middle of the day.
Oh.
And now this is a woman, Elsie Alexander. When Cal flew in 1911, he would stop places, people would come out to see him, just like, you know, even more than me.
Mhm.
And she apparently, back in 1911, was a very, very pretty little girl. And Cal was just so enamored by her. He just thought she was the cutest little girl he ever saw, that he took a lock of her hair and took it across the country because he just thought that she was so cute. And this is her 75 years later. And she's signing the wing of the airplane. Because that's one of the things that Cal Rogers did, is when people would land, people would come and sign the airplane, put their name on it. So I did the same thing. So, but I wanted to limit it to people who were there 75 years ago. So it only, you know, well, couldn't completely enforce that. You know, when the mayor of the town says he wants to sign it, you got to say, you know, but the signatures are still there. I was surprised. They didn't fade.
How did you connect with her? Did she say, oh, this is interesting, and give you a call or?
No, I didn't. In fact, when I landed and she goes, I'm Elsie Alexander. I said,
Wow.
wow.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, well, in a way that, I mean, I did let it be known, each place where I was gonna go, that I wanted to meet people who were there 75 years ago, so somebody must have told her, you know, I don't think she just took it out of, you know. Now,
And your plane is still at this thing outside Schenectady, the museum?
Yes.
I think we should go see it.
Oops.
yep, but I was flying along. This is in, Illinois. You know how you can tell it's Illinois?
Flat.
Do you see anything that even resembles a hill? It's was flat, absolutely flat. I was flying along and engine started to act up. So I was looking for a place to put it down. And I found because this was September, so this was after the harvest. So I'm flying, goes, oh, this is very convenient. This, you know, they essentially plowed the whole state for me. And I'm coming in and I saw a place to land. I lined the plane up with the furrows so that I wouldn't, you know, have a
Sure.
problem. And I had no engine at the time. And I'm starting to come down and what I didn't realize is that it had been raining and this plowed field was about the consistency of wood putty.
Oh,
So I landed here. I probably touched down about here. And all that energy went into the front wheel, knocked it off. Now this is interesting because you see the guy over there on the suit?
Yeah.
That's the FAA.
Aha.
They came, they heard that we had an accident. And he had to come and he had to investigate the accident. Well, he said, then there's and the FAA has a criterion, certain if a repair is this much money, is considered an accident. If it's less than that much money, it's not. He asked me, how much would it cost to fix this? And I said, about $50. He goes, well, then I'm not going to call it an accident. If I called it an accident, you'd have a lot of trouble. I'm going to call it an incident. So I thought, hey, he's okay. He could have made life miserable for us, but he didn't.
You know, with all the preparations for this flight, I was wondering about liability insurance. Did you or your sponsors have to, because incidents sometimes
Our Armor took care of all
have
that.
to have insurance for this?
Yeah, and Armor took that in the, they did, it was transparent to me. I let them, they gave me money, they were gonna do the thing. I said, yep, you can do what you want.
And did you have to check with your life insurance carrier? They were gonna cover you in the event.
I didn't do it, so I don't know. Now this one looks similar. Because what happened here was I was flying and I was gonna land at this golf course, which is what this is. And I come into the golf course and I'm ready to land and I look in front of me and what they had not seen was that there was a wire that went across the golf course.
Oh.
And two towers all painted green, so I didn't see them. Because they had two towers in the woods and this wire coming across there and I'm coming down, all of a sudden I'm hitting here. And I figured, well, if I can go down, I can get underneath it and everything would be all right. Well, I got underneath it. But I landed a little hard, and once again, and there's one design flaw in this airplane was that the front wheel was weak. You know, it should have been able to absorb that energy, but that's what it looked like. And what happened with this is, and again, it's a really good thing that Jack was here because he just went to a Walmart and bought a wheel. A replacement wheel for some kind of bicycle or something that they had there. And it worked fine. But I had Cal Rogers, when he flew across the country, it is arguably that by the time he got to California, the original part of his airplane was a single spar. Everything else was replaced because he had so many accidents. He had a lot more accidents than I did. Now, but I had mine, so as you can see. This one was interesting. I got up in the plane, I took off, and so that did not sound good. So I came across from the airport. I was about a mile away from the airport, and there was a nice field there. It was out in the farm country. I landed in the field, and what do I notice in the field? Inside the fence, there's a bull. And I said, oh, jeez. Well, fortunately, this bull was lazy. And the guy who lived there, he came out, and it was a big deal in an airplane landing.
Sure.
So he helped me lift it out, because we could, it was, like I said, it was pretty light. The two of us could lift it out of the area. And then the bull just kind of looked at us, you know. But the amazing thing too is that this was in, I think this might have been in Kansas. I'm not sure exactly where it was, which tells me I'm going to say something else. But anyway, when we landed, it took about a day or so, a couple of days to go get the thing fixed. The people where we landed actually gave us the keys to their house because they had to go somewhere, and they gave us the keys to the house and says, you know, just, where do you see that?
Yeah.
You're probably the first plane that ever landed.
Well, what we did is we went out and we bought them a whole bunch of groceries, you know. But then, oh, but this is what happened there, was that the spark plug got loose. And and it blew right out of the engine, the spark plug. This is the spark plug hanging, this blowing right out of the engine. And when that happened, it was a 2-cylinder engine. So when you got one cylinder down, it was all drag, it wasn't thrust. You know, so that's why we had to land.
And that's the engine that came from the snowmobile?
Yeah. It was,
I think we all have days like that. You have more traffic.
yeah. Now, this was an interesting one. This was in Texas. This was in Waco, Texas. I landed. What happened there. Oh, by the way, I am an honorary Texan. Yeah, that's right. The governor of Texas made me an honorary Texan because I landed 25 times in Texas. So I'm an honorary Texan. Just so you know. But what happened here was I was flying from my destination, you know, my origin to my destination, and a guy decided to come in. This guy worked for the National Park Service, and he was flying. He flew with a Piper Super Cub, which is a nice little plane. It's a 2-seater, all fabric covered, with a fairly big engine. Has a 145 horsepower engine, and he was following me around. And I came in to land, and I was coming in behind him, and instead of landing, he decided to go up and do a go around. And when he did that, he caused a lot of turbulence.
Yeah.
I was right behind him. I got caught in the turbulence. Plane came down, one wing touched the ground, and it spun around. And I lost my gear. Now, the important thing here is that I'm sure this makes me the only guy who ever got wiped out by the wake turbulence of a Piper Cub. And this is the plane, they carted it away and but it was fixed in a couple of days, because again, this thing was made up of mostly parts that you can get. This was, yeah, this was just, this happened quite a few times. The one up top is, I think it's Colma, California. That's the mayor and some other people there. Now this one. All right, I can see if we have any airplane nuts here. No, let's see, we don't have any. Recognize who that is. I'm having a senior moment. Can't believe I forgot his name. He's just about the most famous pilot that there is.
Chuck Yeager.
He flew chase, Bob Hoover. He flew chase for Chuck Yeager. When Chuck Yeager was flying, he was following them in the jet. And what he did is he spent the rest of his career just going to air shows and doing amazing aerobatic demonstrations in a twin engine. You can almost call it a small airliner. He was Bob Hoover. He was also one of the guys who was supposed to maybe have had Yeager's position as the first man to fly faster than sound, but he didn't. Yeager beat him to it. But he was a friend of Yeager's. They were good friends. And what he did is he flew up. This was in California, and he flew up to go just to see me. In essentially a World War II fighter. Okay, it was actually a T-28. It was post-war, but it was a piston engine fighter trainer, and which was his. And he came up and he flew up there just to see me. And that was a big honor. The other honor that I had was I got to meet. Talking about Piper Cubs again, was the guy who actually first flew the Piper Cub. He flew the first Piper Cubs ever. And he came to see me. So this is, these are big ego builders, believe me. This is.
I have a question. How do you find your way in the air? You have instruments?
I had a map.
Just a map?
Yeah, just a map that I would strap to my leg. Yeah, no, well, most people fly. You don't. They fly what they call VFR, which are visual flight rules, and you just. They call it instrument flight rules, but it also means I follow roads.
What do you use for an altimeter?
An altimeter.
Okay. Okay. I'll be quiet.
No, there was an altimeter. So I knew I was about 1,000 feet above ground most of the time. I tended to fly about 1,000 feet above ground. Sometimes 1,500 feet, but not higher.
What was your Rochester level that night?
Oh, it's 1,000, 2,000 feet. That's nothing. You don't notice anything. You only, according to the FAA, you have to wear oxygen if you're above 15,000. And that's where it starts to, but it'll affect you even more than that. I don't know if you've ever been to Denver, Colorado, and tried to run at Denver. But anyway, here's comparisons, me and Cal. He flew on 17 September, and I flew 75 years to the day. I took off at the same time. He flew 4,231 miles. I figured mine was maybe about 5 miles less because there was one wrong turn that he made that I didn't make. He spent 84 days, which includes hospital time. Took me 57 days, but I had no hospital time. He made 80 landings and I had 101 landings. And you say, no, why did I have 101? He had 80. Well, I had to do every one of his. And my emergencies could not be coincided with his emergencies. So I had about 20 landings that I had to that Cal didn't. Okay. Now, what happened to Cal? A few months after he made the flight, he was taking people up for rides. And one went up with somebody in a plane. And apparently, at least what some say, he ran into a goose. And the goose hits some critical part of the plane. Plane came down and he was killed. Now, again, the spookiest thing about this is that the day he was killed, and I forget what it was, 75 years to the day that he was killed, I was in an airplane flying to the same city that he was. But the plane I was in didn't crash.
Yeah.
But it was the same day, and I didn't realize it until I was sitting there. We were, in a 727 at that time. And I'm looking down and I looked at the date and I was reading about it and I said, wow. I hope I don't reenact the flight.
Or get goose,
What?
or get goose.
Or get used, yeah. Well, I think that's about it. There's that.
Firms based in Seattle?
No, they were based in Omaha,
Oh,
right in the middle of the farm country.
thank you very much.
Okay.
Any other question?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I learned to fly in my forties. And my instructor had had many students before, but he had never had a woman as a student. So we had lots of adventures. And every time you get into the plane, he would offer me gum. It was either Juicy Fruit or Dentine. And it reminded me so much of all the boys I dated in high school, because there were the Juicy guys and there were the kids. So, but we had lots of adventures and I loved it.
Well, fortunately, none of them have been drinking bin fizz.
Was that for your ears? For chewing the gum? For your ear?
Well, I think it was because he was a smoker, and so instead of smoking, he would chew gum. But I flew out of Schenectady
I never
Airport,
chewed gum.
and so, yes, those C-130s had a very bad.
Oh, yeah, C-130?
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I took off from Hoboken with that helicopter flying over me, I was really nervous. I said, God, I hope he doesn't get any closer. I hope he doesn't get any closer. And he was good. He stayed far enough away that I didn't feel him at all. But the C-130, I actually, when was it? It had not to do with the Van Fizz, but I remember being in the same airspace as the C-130. It was interesting. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
No,
Yeah, that was great.
Thanks for listening. This is my ego trip.
Your shirt too. What's the guy's name under your badge there?
This is
The
Luke.
first one.
Louis Blériot.
Oh, yeah.
He flew across the English Channel in, I think it was 09.
His first name was Orville, right?
Louis.
Right.
Okay,
you.
so
I'm gonna
you,
close this down.
all right, so you've got the copy of it on, you have a copy of it on the thumb drive, right?
Right.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Harry Atwood?
On the,
Actually, I have heard of Harry Atwood, yeah.
He used to live up the hill from us. My grandfather used to live in house out of I had a book and the museum wanted one, but for some reason I went in state sale, because my father was cold and burning. But I thought, well, if anybody had ever heard of Harry, besides you landed on the president's lawn, and I know, wait, you might be the one, so you passed the test. You did very well.
Folks, before you go,
What are we getting?
Before you go, Carol, you still here?
And you've been here for 7 more.
I'm fine for you. It's my intro.
Figure out why.
Well, that's.
So I scheduled, did you want to schedule, or was it?
Am I married?
Yeah.
49 years.
I didn't know that sometimes that you know what she's looking for.
Do you ever? We don't anymore, no. But we still love each other.
Yeah, agreed.
What's the nation?
I know that other side. But you gotta sit in these courts.
Trying to balance our books. Actually, it wasn't too hard, but, I was just telling Carol, I don't know if you just took a look at the, report I sent out to all of you guys. The, amount that it shows for the enrollments for our ally or ally courses. Is a total of $9,076.65. Yeah, exactly. That was my reaction.
Probably.
And so I contacted Katie, over at UAS.
Thanks again.
It's always fun for you to do this.
It's great to meet you. Safe trip.
That was fun.
Anyhow, she hasn't gotten back to me. I guess they're out for, when we're getting paid $16 for enrollment. I don't even know where thanks from the point is where 65 cents coming from. But she hasn't gotten back to me. I have no idea, but that's what she doesn't know. I would be surprised if she doesn't know either, because she's just printing out a report. No, fees are separate. The fees are separate.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right, then somebody,
It's just like I do, right? It's, they can't read it, they figure.
Yeah.
Oh, we were talking about what
I understood.
One.
My father-in-law.
I should have been close.
He had a plane of his own, private pilot. That was a job.
You know, the kids are busy.
Flying until he was in his 90s. And then I have a
I do
friend
see Nancy.
who had been a helicopter.
She wants to go to
in
the
Air Force. And after that, he, and for most of the rest of his life, he ran a helicopter service in an air company. And then, and owned a couple of helicopters himself, would take us up and everything. And so I learned just enough to know, we talked about the things that he ran into. And the problems he would have, I knew just enough to know, uh-oh.
And they're speaking it. It's just like. The helicopter was for the operation. It was one of those that didn't have a door on it, right?
Ah.
I know that's just kind of fair. My girlfriend's, girlfriend's father owned a country store across the street. So we parked cars. Oh, it was great. So we made enough money. So we were able to take her up in a helicopter. My mother goes, you know, what did you get at the end of the fair? And I went, I didn't fall.
I think I turned it off.
Oh, I was just getting rid of this.
Oh, no, picture of you.
Yeah, no.